Qatar attempted to infiltrate a South African art exhibit, pushing an anti-Israel, pro-Palestine agenda. Here's what happened. South Africa's Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Gayton McKenzie, revealed that he had to stop Qatar from infiltrating a South African exhibit at an international art festival. And so according to this Ynet Global article, it explains that Gayton McKenzie says a foreign state attempted to influence the country's national pavilion at this prestigious Venice Biennale in Italy to promote the Palestinian narrative and undermine Israel. McKenzie said he blocked the initiative in recent days. According to diplomatic sources in South Africa, the country behind the effort was Qatar. So just to give a bit of context here, Ynet, which is short for Yediot Aharonot, is an Israeli newspaper. However, they are known to be very neutral when it comes to politics and very unbiased, and they have a pretty good track record. So generally, when they quote a source, it is pretty credible. The Venice Biennale is widely regarded as the most important and prestigious art event in the world. The work selected to represent South Africa in its national pavilion focuses on mourning, memory, and repair, linking the killing of women by colonial forces in Namibia, hate crimes against the LGBTQ community in South Africa, and what the curator described as the killings of tens of thousands of women and children in Gaza since October 2023. The exhibition also includes a tribute to Palestinian poet Hiba Abu Nada, who was killed in an Israeli strike during the war in Gaza. In an unusual and sharply worded official statement, McKenzie said he not only cancelled the contract with the exhibition's producing body, but concluded that a foreign state had attempted to use South Africa's pavilion as an indirect vehicle for advancing a political agenda against Israel. According to McKenzie, Qatar did not appear as an official funder for the exhibition, but committed to purchasing South Africa's artworks at the conclusion of the Biennale. He said the arrangement created an incentive to produce art aligned with the Palestinian and anti-Israel narrative, including claims of genocide in Gaza. In his statement, the minister warned that the effort amounted to an attempt to turn South Africa into a proxy for delivering another country's political message on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. If that country has a position and the resources, why not rent its own pavilion and state its views openly, he asked. David Saranga, head of the Digital Diplomacy Division at Israel's Foreign Ministry and Israel's visiting ambassador to South Africa, sent a message to ministry headquarters following McKenzie's remarks. This case best illustrates how influence operations against Israel are carried out in the cultural sphere by states with significant resources, Saranga wrote. If the cultural minister were not a friend of ours, it could have been dismissed as yet another organic anti-Israel initiative by South Africa's cultural community. According to officials at Israel's foreign ministry, the case sheds light on how Qatari influence operations against Israel operate in the cultural domain. They said that since Gideon Sa'ar assumed office as foreign minister, there has been a growing recognition that Israel must move beyond traditional public diplomacy and operate more directly in the realm of influence campaigns. Over here we have an official press statement from the office of Minister Gayton McKenzie. It explains here, as the Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, I have noted misinformation, misdirection, and insult in public statements and media reports surrounding my decision to cancel the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture's working agreement with Art Periodic. I wish to place on the record that it is incorrect to report that DSAC has withdrawn any funding from Art Periodic in staging an exhibition at the 2026 Venice Biennale. So just for context, Art Periodic is the organization that the ministry has commissioned to fund and actually launch this art exhibition. So the agreement between DSAC and Art Periodic was to make our exhibition space available to Art Periodic to promote the work of a South African artist or artists at the exhibition, with the rental of space at the South African Pavilion in Venice already having been paid for. Public resources were therefore already invested in the project prior to any relationship with Art Periodic coming into effect. Art Periodic undertook to raise funding for the South African private sector to stage an exhibition. However, when it was brought to my attention that a foreign country had allegedly undertook to fund South Africa's exhibition, This was raised as a concern with Art Periodic, who clarified that according to their understanding, this foreign country had actually undertaken to purchase the artworks concerned following the conclusion of the Biennale. So as established in the Ynet article, it seems that if this was indeed Qatar, they had not only decided to fund this exhibition, but actually agreed to pay for the artwork afterwards. And so this provides a very strong link between the Qatari influence and the exhibition art piece itself. This nevertheless still raised alarm, as it was being alleged that South Africa's platform was being used as a proxy by a foreign power to endorse a geopolitical message about the actions of Israel in Gaza. This foreign country has its own resources, so why not rent its own space and fund its own message to convey its feelings about Israel and Gaza? What's interesting about McKenzie's address, and this is something we'll get into straight after this, is that he addresses claims of censorship over his decision. So he explains that no censorship has been exercised either, but I retain my discretion as the executive authority of the department to promote South African art and artists, and to be wary of artists being paid to become involved in geopolitical narratives that have the potential to cause unneeded division and bring DSAC and my ministry into disrepute. The artists involved in this must come clean about who was paying for this. Even the Daily Maverick journalist was told about this concern, but never mentioned it in his article, presumably because it did not favor the narrative that he was framing against me. As South Africa, we have our own story to tell, and as government, we should use every opportunity to promote our story, our country. So overall, it was a pretty direct and logical press statement from McKenzie. He explained straight up that this should be an art pavilion aimed at promoting South Africa. It shouldn't have foreign influence or foreign messaging. He took a pretty logical decision in cancelling the agreement with Art Pavilion, because what's being shown here is a pretty explicit foreign interest over the art exhibition itself. After all, why is it that not only does this foreign nation commission the artwork, but it also agrees beforehand to actually purchase the artwork after the festival, even if it doesn't seem to know what the art is going to look like afterwards? Clearly, this has all been prearranged. However, as the media continues to level accusations of censorship against McKenzie, the DA has taken this opportunity to attack him and his party further. The DA has released this press release in which it explained that it has reported McKenzie to the public protector for overturning a lawful Venice Biennale process. It explains that this complaint follows widespread media reports confirming that the minister withdrew South Africa's official submission to the 2026 Venice Biennale after a lawful independent selection process had already been finalized. The DA alleges that the minister replaced a properly constituted institutional process with his own personal or political preference. Once such a process has been concluded, a minister does not have the authority to intervene simply because he disagrees with the outcome. This decision has serious implications beyond a single exhibition, creating a chilling effect on constitutional rights, including freedom of expression and freedom of opinion. If a minister can retroactively overturn artistic decisions, then all future cultural work supported or facilitated by the state becomes vulnerable to political influence regardless of viewpoint or ideology. The DA has therefore asked the public protector to conduct a full investigation into whether the minister's conduct amounts to maladministration, an abuse or unjustifiable exercise of power, and an act of omission by a person performing a public function that resulted in unlawful or improper prejudice to others. South Africa's creative sector depends on clear rules, institutional independence, and fair process. When political actors intervene after the fact, it undermines trust in public institutions and damages South Africa's standing internationally. Minister McKenzie's actions make a mockery of South Africa's constitutional commitment to freedom of expression, including the freedom of artistic creativity. He swore an oath to uphold the Constitution, yet by censoring South Africa's Venice Biennale submission, our complaint alleges that he has violated that oath, breached his constitutional obligations, and abused his ministerial powers. He's not a law unto himself, and he would do well to remember that being in office is not a popularity contest, but a responsibility governed by law. So a few issues here. The DA continues to allege that this is some sort of a clampdown on freedom of expression, which it is not. What Minister McKenzie did was that he took an official stance on the matter. He has the ability, and yes, I understand that there's a selection panel, right? But he still has the ability to block an artwork from being shown, as he has actually exercised with this executive decision that he took. And what's also really interesting to me is how even the ANC, who is supposedly all pro-Palestinian, and other parties have not taken an issue with McKenzie's stance, only the DA. The DA should also ask itself whether procedure really should trump outcome. I understand that they're very procedurally driven and they always want to nitpick about what the law says and what these different procedures and processes and institutions stipulate. But the reality on the ground is that no law has actually been broken here. You could maybe argue that, yes, he bypassed the selection committee's decision, or maybe there is some sort of a rule that they established beforehand, but there's no actual law that has been broken. Show me the law. Freedom of expression has not been violated. The artist can still sell her artwork elsewhere, can still show it elsewhere. It's still the ministry's discretion to determine whether or not the artwork should be shown. And I think it's quite ironic that the DA complains and says that this shouldn't be about foreign policy or his personal preference, because ultimately they complain about the foreign policy of the country all the time. They're happy to continue trying to pressure the ANC, on certain instances, rightfully so, into taking certain policy decisions. For example, trying to press the ANC to withdraw the Iranians from the joint naval exercise that's taking place. They've also pressurized the ANC into actually breaking their silence on the Iranian protests that are going on right now. And they did so successfully, I might add. But ultimately, they cannot simply complain about McKenzie taking his own decision on the foreign policy front, where they attempt to do so all the time. The only difference between McKenzie and the DA is that McKenzie and the PA have actually been able to take concrete action because it is under his jurisdiction to do so. The DA haven't been able to because a lot of their decisions have been aimed at DIRCO, and DIRCO is ANC controlled. The DA doesn't now get to complain that somebody else has acted, whereas they have failed to do so. And ultimately, this is not going to bode well for them, because we already know that the DA and the ANC have a strained relationship. They've alienated the PA for the longest time. They don't seem to be building any meaningful partnerships with other GNU partners. And of course, parties in the opposition, particularly in the Progressive Caucus, are not a fan of the DA as well. And so when it comes to the upcoming elections, and especially the building of coalitions, the DA really need to think about how they're going to approach that situation, because you cannot do so in isolation. Whether or not people agree with the DA or the ANC ideologically, one thing is clear. Political parties who are prioritizing their survival may be forced to work with the ANC, because the DA is proving to be a very combative and confrontational actor. And this will not bode well for them if they do not somehow find a way to build more positive relations, particularly with their GNU partners. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please remember to subscribe to the channel for more content. Furthermore, consider becoming a Power Club member to enjoy some additional perks by clicking on the join button below. Until next time, I'm Matthew Cohen, and this is the Power Pod.